All right, I am live. So I'm doing a very quick live stream toward it's like midnight, and so I'm probably going to work till about 2 to kind of finish up. Hopefully, I can kind of wrap before then, but to finish up page 37 of roughs for page 37 of Not Death But Love: The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which I'm pretty excited about. I actually was gonna just live stream after Artcasters, but I also wanted to catch Gary Hodges' channel um, because we did Artcasters on Wednesday, which is kind of a flip. And by the way, it was great. We had Art by Galen on, and it was just a great conversation and really cool and really inspiring. And I encourage you guys to check that out on Scott Strickland's channel. But definitely also make sure you guys don't miss the top 5 with Jim Lujan and Gary Hodges on his channel. It was really fun. They ran through their top 5 films, and it got me thinking, and it was inspiring. And I also managed to thumbnail two panels while listening to their stream. So it's good listening material while you're working. So if you're looking for inspiration and stuff to listen to that might get the brain kind of sparked and going, check it out. Okay, so let me pull up the stream. So this is where I'm at so far on the thumbnails for page 37, which is what I need to wrap before I can start getting into taking photo references, doing final pencils, and then from there going to like color. And so this is the last of the section of 5 that I want to get out to my publisher for approval before I can kind of move forward. So the last page we finished was page 36, where we saw basically we had Robert and Elizabeth kind of meeting with her family, her extended family, and now we have them on a carriage ride through the park, which is very Victorian. And so I have kind of gotten into this, and we'll go ahead and go through the script real quick and then break it down from there. And again, because this is such a late night stream, I'm not expecting like a mass turnout, but if you're watching this after the fact, cool. And maybe, just maybe, I'll go through some of my favorite movies. Because one thing I found really fascinating about Gary's stream was how much I agree with them on like how much I love every movie they listed. But I was thinking how fascinating it is that those would all probably be on my top 20, except there's a movie that I hadn't heard of. I think it's called like The Slums of Beverly Hills, and that was on the list that Jim mentioned. And I'm going to have to check that out. So that was cool. I learned something new about a movie I haven't seen. But other than that, every film they listed would have been in my top films of all time, but maybe not my top 5. And I realized like it's interesting because it says a lot about a creator and their tastes when you think about like what are people's favorite films. So yeah. All right, let's get into some drawing, and then maybe I'll talk about my top 5 if I can think of them. I haven't done any pre-thinking on this, but it might be interesting. And if you guys are in the comments or watching along live, feel free to like kind of list what are your guys' favorite movies and stuff. And also make sure you check out Gary's stream because they do a really excellent job. One thing I love about Gary Hodges, he used to be a professional critic too, and so he's just really articulate and very good at doing reviews and evaluations of his own work and of other people's work. He's just very concise and descriptive in his language. And also he's a damn good writer, like Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. So is Jim, actually. Jim's cartoons, Jim Lujan, they're both really concise and intelligent people, so it's fun to hear. Anyhow, okay, we're going to get into the thumbnail here. Oh yeah, I was going to read the script. So right now what we're blocking out is Elizabeth and Robert with pen between them sit opposite Arabelle and Henrietta in an open carriage. That's what I've drawn up here. as it travels through the park. And then Henrietta says, "What other plans do you have while you're in London?" And this is where we're going to get into the juicy meat of this script, because this is a story that's about Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning. And but it's also, you'll notice it's called The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And this is where we're going to start getting into some seance business. And so we're going to start introducing and alluding to some very significant characters that will come into play later on. But now we're going to get into some of the juicy part of the plot, which I'm really excited about. But anyhow, it's all being dropped with dialogue here. So Elizabeth says, "I have told Robert the first thing we must do is attend a seance." And then Arabelle looks scandalized, and Arabelle says, "Bah!" And that's where I'm at on the script. The next part I'm going to block out. I've thumbnailed this out too, down here. That actually was done while doing Artcasters. Oh, and then Philip just said, "I was just about to turn in and I'm lying in bed burning on your notification." And of course you have to talk about favorite movies. Okay, so the one thing I have to block out while I'm kind of thinking about my favorite movies, I might go backwards and just go with like, I'll work through my list, because I'm not gonna like, I don't have time to like pre-prep a list, but I do have like go-tos that I think would definitely come into play. And it's funny, not surprisingly, a lot of them are slice of life movies. This is what I thought was really interesting about hearing Jim and Gary talk about their favorite movies of all time. And it's just interesting. Philip said, "Sorry, autocorrect is messy." It's okay, man. Like, I've had autocorrect stuff all the time. I'm familiar with it. Okay, so let's get into this. "I know you do not approve of talk of spirits, but I must satisfy my curiosity as to a Mr. Daniel Douglas home." Ooh, we're getting introductions to the villain. I'm giving a bit of a spoiler there, but you know, it's pretty exciting, honestly. This is probably the character I'm most eager to draw, just because they're so fascinating. Okay. I know. So I need to work out this type real quick, and then while I'm drawing, maybe I can talk about my favorite movies. I'll try to boil it down to like a top 5. And this is in the spirit of the top 5 show that Gary and Jim are doing, which I really encourage you guys to check out. And I'm kind of excited about their show too, because I think it's going to start a lot of interesting top 5-ish conversations between everybody, which is kind of cool. Talk of spirits. I also love that in Victorian era, they would say talk of spirits. Like, spirits was like a much more commonly used term. But I must satisfy my curiosity as to a Mr. Daniel Douglas home. Got it. Okay. You guys ready for this business? So, this is going to be a side shot. I'll have to save. So this is going to be a side shot of Henrietta, who we've drawn here. So it's literally going to be the reverse shot real quick, where we're going to do her face. And while I'm doing this, maybe I'll talk about my all-time, I think probably my all-time favorite movie. My favorite movie of all time is probably for like movies that just are really amazing to me and don't get old and I can rewatch and rewatch, but also do things that I love in film. I'm going to put The Graduate up there. I think The Graduate is like my favorite movie. It's my favorite movie soundtrack. It is a very interesting movie that does a lot of things that impacted my art. One of the things that I love about The Graduate is it's very patient. Like it's a movie that I think the most impactful scene to me in that movie is the ending, where you have this couple that sort of run away together to get married, and they get in a bus after sort of like the main character like breaks up this wedding to get the girl that he loves. They get on a bus and there's this long camera shot of just the bus driving. Like most movies would like end, they get on the bus, they smile, and then it cuts to the end, happily ever after. But this one, they're at the back of the bus holding hands, all exhilarated and happy. And then it stays with them until they each give like a look like, and now what? I love that movie. I love that movie for multiple reasons. Another reason I love that movie are just these brief moments, like little character things. The main character is going to college on like a running scholarship, and he constantly reacts to stressful situations by just doing these crazy long runs. And again, the patience of the direction in the film, where it will just stay with him while he's running to like an awkward extent, is just amazing to me. There's another scene in it where he's in bed depressed and he's pushing cigarettes off the edge of the balcony while smoking the next cigarette. And as he's putting them out, he's pushing them like they're all lined up and he's just scooting them on his balcony. It's just little moments like that that I love about that movie. Plus just the angles, the filming, the way it's shot. It's just, to me, that's one of my, if not the top, that's one of my top 5 for sure. The Graduate. Also just the soundtrack, Simon and Garfunkel, custom built for that film, is just kind of incredible. Okay, here's going to be Elizabeth who's saying this. And I like the idea of, initially on the rough, it was just going to be Elizabeth, but I think I need to remind people that this is also like a carriage ride. So, okay. And I need to be looser because I'm starting to get all noodly. Okay. And so Elizabeth is talking about needing to I like the idea of her hand being kind of out as she's talking. I do like using hand gestures a lot with my comics. I think it gives a lot of expression to characters. Okay, so we're gonna kind of again. This is actually making me a little nervous because now I'm remembering in the script there is a giant party scene coming up, like a big Victorian gathering, and that's going to be quite an undertaking to try to draw like a big social gathering with a giant crowd of people. But at the same time, it should be fun. So this is Elizabeth wearing this rad boss fur coat kind of thing she's got. So we'll kind of keep that in mind. So let me see. So second movie, that would be a contender for first. I absolutely love the movie The Apartment, the original like Jack Lemmon movie. I adore that movie. It's again like a slice of life. It's a very old black and white movie. It's a slice of life, but the dialogue and the humor and the basically like Jack Lemmon kind of falls in love with a girl at his office who's a secretary. And he's kind of a depressed guy who's stuck at like a 9 to 5 that he hates. And he's trying to kind of work his way up the corporate ladder. He really idolizes the executives at the business he works at. And he's a lonely, simple guy. And as he kind of starts working his way up, but he kind of starts falling for and flirting with this girl who's a secretary. And then the catch is that he starts getting promoted, but the reason he's getting promoted is because he's lending his key to his apartment. He has an apartment, and so his value to his workplace becomes him being kind of the apartment that all the executives go to like cheat on their wives. This is like back in the day when like there weren't a lot of like workplace laws and like, so it's really sad. It's like this guy is basically being used for his apartment. And what ends up happening is one of the nights that the executives, and they're gradually just promoting him just to kind of keep the key to his apartment. And then the catch is that like one of the times he basically has like a secretary who's friends with at work who like had attempted to like commit suicide like in the apartment. Like she had taken a bunch of pills. And so he wakes her up like, you got to get out of my apartment, that kind of thing. And it kind of ends up being like this thing where he sort of falls in love with this girl because she's like this poor girl who's been kind of like convinced and abused by like this evil executive at his workplace. So anyhow, he decides to stop. He gets disgusted by this, decides to stop giving the apartment key away and stuff like that. But it's one of those movies where if I describe the plot of it, it's not like the most intensely interesting plot. Like that is pretty fascinating actually as just a plot premise, but it's definitely a character-driven movie, much like The Graduate. And I just absolutely adore that film. Because of the acting, the staging, and Jack Lemmon's performance. So that would be like a second on my list. Let's see here. Okay. I kind of feel like I need to include an adventure film because I don't want everything on my list to be like art films. I love a lot of art films. There's a ton of movies I love. But I think that if I was going to do a list, I would actually put Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. That would be on my list. Oh. And I think it's mostly, it might be nostalgia. That's the reason for that. But I still, to this day, anytime I watch that movie, the script, it's like, I just think the relationship between the father character and the son in it is so great. Like Sean Connery and Harrison Ford in that movie their performances are so dead on and so great that I would put that probably in my top 5 movies of all time. Is that crazy? I also think it's a really good example of just like a very cool kind of historical fiction story, and I just dig the hell out of it. Like I can rewatch it to this day, and I love pretty much everything about that movie. I think the other Indiana Jones movies have their weaknesses and strengths. I feel like that one in particular was just A game all around. Like the action's great, the humor is hilarious, the character work in it, like the way they developed Indiana Jones in it, it's great. And I know that might be weird to have that on the list, but that might be one of my top ones. So let's see, we're at 3. It's going to get hard. I can see where, like, by the way, I really encourage you guys to go to Gary Hodges' stream, because, like, again, this is just me stream of consciousness thinking this in response to their video. If I had more time to prep or something like that, I might have a more kind of nuanced reason for these things. This is just me from the gut, kind of talking about in response to their very well articulated, brilliant video that you guys should all watch. Let me see what else. Hold on a second. Now, here is where I will totally agree with Jim Lujan. I would actually say The Shining would be up there, just strictly visual. Like, the performances and stuff like that are great, but like that movie is a cinematography kind of a cinematographer's like dream. It's just like beautiful, the staging, everything. And I guess like let's just jump to the last one. There's a whole bunch of movies I love, so I can see where this is like quite a challenge, and probably would be something someone would want to think about for a bit before kind of hopping in on it. By the way, so we've done our scene. Where we have basically, we have got most of this set up. So now I just need to have Henrietta saying the medium, and then Elizabeth is going to be saying, Mr. Home is a guest of our friends, the Rhymers. He's like a son to them, travels with them wherever they go. They say he converses with the spirits as easily as I am conversing with you. So that's what we're going to work out. And then I need to actually have this be a little bit more of an, not overhead, but just a higher angle shot where we're seeing the cab from like an angle. It's like more of a 3/4 view from the top. Okay. Oh man, it is a hard list though, because it's like, I mean, I absolutely love Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That should be on the top. Like, there's so many. I don't know how they did it. But again, these are like the top 5 for the day and not necessarily for eternity. I would put the Royal Tenenbaums up there. And the reason for this is my favorite writer, still to this day, and growing up, like the person who got me heavily interested in almost like slice of life in general, and this sort of genre, and this isn't unique to me, right? This is going to be like not a big shocker to people, but it's Catcher in the Rye, like J.D. Salinger, you know? When I read Catcher in the Rye, it just kind of changed my ambitions as an artist and like what I thought storytelling could be. It was like, for me, just like this breath of fresh air to read this story about just like a kid. And it wasn't like giant events happened. It just felt so real. It felt so true to life, and it had heavy themes, but they were really understated. So anyhow, because of that, I read a bunch of Salinger's stuff, and J.D. Salinger has this series of stories about the Glass family. It's like this family of super geniuses that basically were kind of misunderstood. They were kind of like kid stars, and then they grew up, and all of them have major mental health problems and stuff like that. And like one of them went to war, like, you know, anyhow, these are the Glass family stories are all told in like Franny and Zoe and Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters and Seymour an Introduction, and like a bunch of like Salinger's like short stories are about the Glass family. The reason I'm mentioning the Glass family is I need to see these characters. Okay. So this one is going to be Henrietta. Henrietta is going to be here. So anyhow, the reason I'm mentioning them is the thing I love about Royal Tenenbaums is it's basically the Glass family. Like they pretty much took Salinger's stories that I absolutely love, probably my favorite stories, maybe of all time, not just by Salinger, but just like stories that just really resonated with me, had a huge impact on me. And they pretty much made it into one of the best movies I think I've seen. I just love it. I love the character study of it. I love the way that it kind of breaks down like family dynamics and gets into like drama and stuff like that. So I think Royal Tenenbaums might actually be on my list. But it is tough, right? Like, because there's a bunch of like things that are kind of close to making the list. Like, I love black and white movies a lot. And I feel like Philadelphia Story, like Jimmy Stewart, again, it's like a character family drama. Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, probably one of his most powerful roles. We named our dog after a character in that. The one that just recently was passed away, C.K. Dexter Haven, was Cary Grant's character in that movie. And I absolutely love that movie. There's other comedies I really love, like Bringing Up Baby. That's another Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many there are so many films and stuff like that, but it was interesting. It was interesting to see their list. I mean, Star Wars is still one of my favorite movies. I agree with both Corey, sorry, I just said Corey, Gary, and Jim's take on like Empire Strikes Back, like made both of their lists. I'd have to put Empire pretty high up there. What's weird is when I think about it, though, I rewatch like Last Crusade more often than I watch Star Wars, which is kind of weird, but it's true. And I love Star Wars. But anyhow, so that was kind of my rough idea of things that I prefer and like. I think we're going to have. Okay, now I need to have her kind of leaning forward. This is Henrietta here, or sorry, this is Arabelle. Arabelle's sort of leaning forward in dialogue. And I believe she's got her sort of jacket going. And I do like kind of the challenge of fitting them all into this hard to draw kind of cabin thing. Okay. All right. So that's Arabelle. Now I need to draw. We need to have Robert here. Well, let's draw Elizabeth because she's the primary person in this conversation. And I'm actually pretty stoked on like how this has been coming along. And here I'm going to have her hand kind of doing like she's doing the sort of like weaving a tale here. And then this is going to be okay, her jacket kind of goes to here. And then she is going to have her stuff going there. And then we've got, I'm kind of trying to keep the carriage in mind here because there is definitely a sort of padded carriage. Okay, the kid is going to be here. He's still wearing that same outfit. Maybe his hands are kind of together on his lap. And then we have Robert. Robert's going to be right here. And we're going to learn a bunch more about this home fellow very shortly, but I'm really excited about the introduction of that. It's like finally getting to a part in the story that's like, the whole story is really great, but this is like getting to the meaty stuff, like the really fun, just dramatic plot stuff. I don't like that positioning for Robert. I feel like his head should be up a little higher. And we're just working out like a group scene here. So his head's going to be a little higher. Arm over the side. Maybe his hand will be here. Perfect. Okay. And then this is going to dip down a little bit because that's what it does on the other side. So why wouldn't it on this? That's going to be like a door. Okay. And then we're going to have this kind of be the carriage container thing. This is going to be dipping down for the legs. It's like a little leg section. And then this is going to be the wheel on this carriage. Just thinking about it in perspective a little bit. And this is going to be that wheel. And this wheel is not like it's not a bicycle spoke type wheel. This is like a straight up carriage wheel. Again, this is a rough, so we just have to kind of get the basics. This is going to be where this is basically if they were to pull the top. This is the top unpulled. So that's open, the open top there. Robert has dark hair. Elizabeth has dark hair. She has a dark jacket on. This is dark as well. Her hair is dark as well. So then we have, I do need to have Henrietta's statement here. So in this case, I think at this point I can turn off that thumbnail and we can kind of move forward. So I'm kind of excited about that. We'll see if I say I'm excited about stuff quite a lot. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I think my most overused phrase is probably saying I am kind of excited about something. What's going to be interesting here is like, okay, well, let's get into this. The first thing is she's going to be saying the medium. And I kind of like the idea of maybe scooting this over a little bit so it's not quite so centered. Because I'm also going to need to have I think this should be a little larger too, so it's a little easier to read. But I want to leave plenty of space for her immense amount of type that's going to be here. So maybe it's a little bit smaller. Let's see if that works. So then we're going to have our guys. So this is going to be the place that the cabbies are. They're kind of like cab drivers almost. But I kind of need them to be in frame a little bit. I might bend reality a little bit and have like one of them kind of sitting here. Okay. And we're going to have this as the cab driver. Oh my goodness. This cab driver is going to be wearing one of these kind of ridiculous hats. And I think the medium type should not be there. Okay, so this is going to be the ridiculous hat cab driver is wearing. This is going to be her parasol thing, which might have to be up here. This is going to be the part of that carriage that we're kind of seeing from the top a little bit. And this is just going to be, okay. Now we are kind of in the money, guys. Like, I think we're actually on the home stretch, which is kind of amazing. I would like this to say the medium a little further away. And then this is going to be This is going to be Elizabeth saying, Mr. Home is a guest of our friends the Rhymers. He is like a son to them. And travels with them wherever they go. They say he converses with spirits as easily as I am conversing with you. So there we go. Getting there, guys, getting there. So I like this big batch of dialogue. I think we're getting close. Oh, my goodness, I shouldn't have erased all of the dialogue there. That's a good batch of dialogue. I think what I need to do here is probably move this over even again, just a tiny bit more. And again, we're working on roughs. That is the catch with these things. We're always kind of working on thumbnails or roughs at first before we go and invest a ton of time into kind of making final pages. I highly recommend people do that. You end up working out a lot of details and staging, and save yourself a lot of headache and work by kind of getting these details all worked out at the beginning. Okay, I don't like how couched at the edge this is. I feel like this actually needs to be more kind of that way. Okay, now let's try. I do like this being cut off a little bit. It's an awkward speech balloon, though, to have it stacked like that, but I think it's actually going to work. If I can avoid the speech balloon point to her, I think if I can avoid the key thing here is going to be avoiding the tangent. So that's going to be key. And then we're going to have this on a path that is going through the park. So we're going to have some trees, some really pretty flowers. Some bushes. Okay. Now we're going to have just a little bit of like a semblance of lighting, which is the last part we establish on a rough. And then we might actually be done with our thumbnails for the night, which is pretty cool. If you are watching along, thank you for hanging out with me. This might be a shorter stream. Pretty excited. This is also actually what I really intended to accomplish on my day off. And so I'm pretty excited if I can get there, because now I'm where I need to be. And that is very helpful. When you're working on a 230 something page graphic novel, it can feel pretty overwhelming if you're like multiple pages behind where you need to be. And this will put me right back on track where I'm kind of comfortable with potentially hitting the deadline, as long as I can kind of keep pace. So that is going to do it. I think that works for the rough. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I want to say I should turn off the text wherever. Oh my goodness, that was not something I was trying to do. Where's that text? That text is hiding somewhere. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to say that if you guys watched this and you enjoyed it, I highly recommend go check out Gary Hodges' channel and check out the top 5 movies by Gary Hodges and Jim Lujan. It's super awesome. It's super inspiring. It's super fun, and you'll get a kick out of it. That's going to do it for my stream tonight. And I'm actually going to turn in a little early because I have been at this all day. But I'm excited because I get to send this to my publisher, and then tomorrow I can start doing photo references, and we can start getting the pencils, and we are going to continue to make comics. Thanks to everybody who's watched this. If you haven't yet, please consider, or if you're curious, you're like, what kind of stuff does this guy do? What does his final work look like? Pick up Jacob's Apartment. It's a graphic novel. Here, I'll grab the thing. It's a graphic novel that is basically like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind and Ghost World and you put them in a blender and you like the flavor of that, this book would be right up your alley. It is a story about the kinds of questions that can shake even the strongest of faith. It is a full page, 120, or sorry, hold on a sec. I'm kind of blanking out. It's a 130 page full color graphic novel. And then I was going to say, you can also check out Two Stories, which is my book about faith and mental illness that's hand lettered, hand inked, and then talks about my journey dealing with manic depression, suicidal ideation, caregiving for somebody with panic disorder, and a lot of like heavier kind of very confessional issues, as well as lighthearted stories like growing up before cosplay was around and dressing as Indiana Jones at school for an entire year. So little things like that, Two Stories and Jacob's Apartment, if you enjoy these streams. And this is going to be a short one, you guys. Have a good, lovely night, and I will see you guys on the next live stream. Bye.